breaking news. Man stabbed his fiancée after hours of proposing, and she's now unalive. What could have pushed him to the brink of unaliving his fiancée hours after proposing? Sit back, we're going to get to the bottom of this. Make sure you subscribe to my daughter's YouTube channel at Juanita Mecca Audio. Subscribe to Unique Mecca Audio Prison Stories and Mecca Audio TV. Let's get it moving. All right.
Keep it going, 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 keep it going. Mecca what? Mecca audio, Mecca what? Mecca audio, Mecca what? Mecca audio, Mecca what? Mecca audio. I like the way it's going
All right, you know what it is. Unique Mecca Audio, man. Man unalives his woman by stabbing her after proposing a few hours later. Let's play the video and get to the point.
This was supposed to be the start of their new life together. An engagement caught on camera with a thrilled bride-to-be. But just hours after this heartwarming video, this man allegedly murdered his new fiancée, stabbing her to death. Today,
Does he look like a man that would do that, or he's at the brink of doing that?
today's story takes us to Elizabeth, New Jersey, not too far from New York. On December 29th, 52-year-old Jose Melo got down on one knee and proposed to his girlfriend, 31-year-old Niket Trinidad Maldonado. You can see this for yourself in the video, showing Melo pop the question in a New Jersey bar.
What do you think she did that warranted him doing that? We know nothing warrants that, but what do you think led up to that?
The reason we have this video at all is because Melo himself posted this supposedly happy moment to his own social media as a way to celebrate. It was
Yo, there's nothing that this woman could have done to warrant that. Nothing on God's green earth could warrant her fiancé unaliving her hours after proposing. Let's say that for the record, to get that out there, because I know we got the rat bastards and flip-flop wearing in public trolls that'll try and move this story around to where it's not at. All right.
It was about 9 o'clock the next morning, though, on December 30th, when police responded to reports of a stabbing. Inside a home, police discovered Maldonado's body. She was pronounced dead at the scene, and investigators have since revealed she was stabbed to death. A few days later, on January 2nd, her newfound fiancé was arrested. Jose Melo now faces multiple charges, including first-degree murder, third-degree possession of a weapon for unlawful purpose, and fourth-degree unlawful possession of a weapon. This isn't Melo's first run-in with the law either. He's actually already a registered sex offender in New Jersey after a 2010 conviction. Back then, he attacked a woman with a box cutter before sexually assaulting her. It's unclear what led up to that attack or
Nothing could have led up to that attack. And why would you marry this guy? I mean, I'm just saying.
the attack of Maldonado. So far, investigators haven't revealed a motive, so we still have a lot of questions. What we do know about Maldonado comes from a GoFundMe page created by her aunt. According to the posting, Maldonado mostly went by the nickname Nakey. Her aunt writes that Nakey was senselessly taken in an act of evil. According to the post, Maldonado left behind 2 young children who are now left orphaned with no parents. She didn't have a large family base in New Jersey either. Most of her family is either in Florida or Puerto Rico. Funds from the GoFundMe page will go to support Maldonado's funeral in Florida and her eventual burial in Puerto Rico, where she's originally from. So let's take a closer look at this case. For that, we're going to bring in Anthony Osso. You're a criminal defense attorney, but I really wanted to talk to you today because of your work as a prosecutor in the domestic violence division. So, right away, does this sound like domestic violence to you?
Well, absolutely. You've got an engaged couple, and an altercation between them ultimately is fatal, and that is textbook domestic violence.
Why did he
You
do it?
mentioned that they were engaged, and that's something that's so interesting about this story. We have this video that's posted to social media. They look like they're in love. They're telling each other they love each other, exchanging the ring. It looks fantastic. And then all of a sudden, we have her murdered less than 24 hours later. I mean, that's a bit conflicting to me. I guess, does it just show that social media isn't real life? Things may not be what they seem?
You've read my mind. I think it just goes to show that what you see on social media isn't necessarily what's going on behind the scenes. And oftentimes, when there's turmoil in a relationship, the abuser will do things like that, sort of to show love and affection, to keep the other party interested and involved in the relationship.
But why would a dude propose to a woman, she accept, and then he takes her life? Somebody make that make sense to me. I'm really confused right now. And they say social media, what that got to do with it? She could have said no if they was having turbulence. Let's listen to the rest of this.
Oh, that's interesting because I mean, getting married is basically the ultimate thing you can do to commit to someone in a relationship. So we're having this major proposal, and then again, less than 24 hours, the worst thing you can do to someone in murdering them. So do you think potentially he was proposing to her to kind of keep her with him rather than her leaving or escaping the relationship?
Based on the little information we know, I can't say for certain, but I know that it's an ongoing investigation. And I imagine that the investigators are going to want to find out what the relationship was like leading up to that point. And
Word.
something like that, a murder doesn't happen overnight. So I think that we'll find that that's a possibility, that it was some sort of way to keep her involved in the relationship.
You mentioned the past of their relationship, and that immediately crossed my mind too. Like, how long have these two been together? What was their relationship like in the past? Were police involved? Was family and friends, were they concerned? All things like that. So, is that something investigators are really going to take a deep dive into their past relationship?
Absolutely. In murder cases, typically, uh, you're allowed to get into, in the trial setting, you're allowed to get into the nature of the relationship in order to establish um, what it was like between the couple, or the people that were involved, the victim and the alleged murder. So in this case, I don't think there were witnesses. I think it was only two of them at the residence when she was stabbed. That leaves a lot of room for defense to bring up self-defense arguments or sudden passion type arguments. And it's important for investigators to talk to people surrounding them to really get an idea of what their relationship truly was like.
And the next question too is not only what was their relationship like and were there any red flags, but leading up to the murder, we don't know what happened. I'm assuming there's some sort of fight, but we can't even say that for sure. We don't know what an argument could have been about. Is that something investigators are also going to look into, the moments right before this stabbing?
Yeah, do you think this was a crime of passion? Or maybe it was just a nut? What do you think? Put it in the comments. Let's get this right.
Certainly, it is. It's more difficult because they don't. I don't think that they have eyewitnesses, so they're going to have to be more creative. They're going to have to look through potentially the victim and the defendant's cell phone, um, to try and see if they can look at communication between the two of them to see what was going on in their minds. The physical evidence throughout the crime scene. Were there things thrown across the ground? Did it look like there was a struggle? Does the defendant have defensive wounds? Does she have additional wounds that weren't from a knife, or a sharp object that could cause a stabbing? So there's a lot of things that the investigators are going to need to find out during their investigation in this case.
And you mentioned cell phones, which is something I talk about in pretty much every story I cover because we all have our phone with them, with ourselves. Sometimes we have our extra phone for work. I mean, it has so many details. And you mentioned their conversations probably via text or maybe even social media. But do you think investigators are going to dig a little deeper too to see who else they were talking to? I mean, I'm just spitballing here. We don't have this confirmed or anything, but potentially if there was infidelity, one of them is talking to another person, something like that. Are they going to make sure to get all the info from the phone?
Sure. I think any information like that, like potential infidelity, where they're talking to other people, I think that that could be really useful evidence if you're a prosecutor to say, well, here's the motive um, for the defendant to commit the crime, right? And motive can be used to show intent, and that's really important when you're talking about a murder trial or a murder case.
And I know we've been talking a lot about the things we don't know. We still have so many questions that we're hoping to have answered. But what we do know is that she was stabbed to death. And immediately, whenever I hear this, the fact that we have the suspect who allegedly stabbed her and killed her, that is such an intimate way to kill someone. It's physically exerting your body, but also you have to be very close to them. You have to continually stab her. We don't know how many times, but again, more than once, I'm assuming. Does that factor in at all? Is that something that prosecutors are going to highlight, that this was such an intimate crime?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, gruesome is the word that comes to mind when I think of a stabbing case. And it's a very intimate way to kill somebody. It's a very violent way to kill somebody, and it's not typically instant. So I imagine that the prosecutors will lean into that heavily. And from a defense perspective, um, they may try to use it to say, well, sharp objects are easily accessible. And if I've got to think that they've got to go with a self-defense argument here, they're probably going to lean into that it was an object used for self-defense.
If we're talking about self defense and what sort of story he could bring to the table, you said that's going to be their route, likely is self defense. But how do they prove it if there's no witnesses except for him?
Sure, it's plausible. I don't know for certain that that's what they will do, but it's a possibility. I don't know that identity is going to be the route that they can go because he was the only person on scene. Um, but looking at the physical evidence, his testimony potentially, but I think that there's some prior criminal history which will limit his ability to take the stand in any trial. So it's likely going to come down to the physical evidence on scene.
You brought up the prior criminal history, and that's a great segue because I want to talk about that too. Back in 2010, he was convicted. He threatened this woman with a box cutter. So, again, another sharp object. And then he apparently sexually assaulted her. So, he's on the sex offender registry as of now. He's been convicted of this crime. So, right away, I'm thinking prior bad acts. It's kind of similar in a way. This woman wasn't killed, but a similar crime. Is that something that the prosecution could bring in?
Uh, it would require the defense to open the door, likely. They're not just going to be able to bring in that evidence, right? You can't say because someone committed this crime on X date, they committed this crime on Y date. But if the defendant were to take the stand or a witness were to make a statement like he would never commit a violent act, well, then you've completely opened the door to his prior criminal history. Um, and so in that case, prosecutors would be able to get into that evidence.
Hey, yo, bottom line, because they're doing a bunch of talking around the bush. That's what they don't like about some of this YouTube crap. Bottom line is, if he's the only one dead with her, they find her dead. How did they find her? Did they come in and find her and him standing over the body, in the room with the body, in the apartment with the body? That's going to be one. Now, did he call the police and say that she's dead, that he did it? Obviously not. They would have said it. Did he call the police and say that he got there, she was laying there dead? Maybe. But the moral of the story is only person could convict this man is this man. That's why we got an old saying from back in the day, but we ride. It's called, see how to put it so you can understand it. Dead man tells no tales. End of story. In this case, dead woman tell no tales. That means she can't tell what happened. So if it's just you and the victim, then it's only you that could get you convicted. Because let's take a ride, as I said. You got this man that's proposed to this woman. Huh? She accepted. I assume, because they didn't say she didn't. But now he proposed to this woman, and then she's dead in her apartment, and they charging him with the unaliving of her in her apartment. I'm just walking through this in my head as we talk about this. Now, if they do that, all right, where do you think that's gonna take him? If he don't say nothing, they don't have nothing. His DNA being there, because they talking about physical evidence is what they're gonna use together. How are they gonna use this man's DNA being in the apartment of his fiance that just accepted? So if he don't have any scars on his hand or anything like that, then he has a chance of beating it. Hoping he beating it, not praying he beating it. Nothing to do with beating it. We just making content and letting y'all know how the criminal justice system works. So hopefully it would deter the youth and the elders from wanting to go down that path. Unless he tells what happened, they don't know what happened. Everything else would be speculation from the evidence. Whatever DNA they find there, as long as even her blood on him, he could get away with that because he could say he seen her and he reached down to touch her because he was in love and he didn't think not to touch her. And that's how her blood got on him. It could be any one of those things. So that's why I say it is what it is. Let's play the rest of this out.
The testimony is really what I keep circling around because obviously in any case, I as a viewer want to see the defendant on the stand. It's up to them. But oftentimes we see it when it's a self-defense case, especially in this instance when there's no other witnesses. Do you think it's a good idea, bad idea? What do you expect in all of that?
I think it depends entirely on the facts of the case, the relationship between the complainant and the defendant, and who the defendant is. It doesn't sound like, just based on his criminal history, that he's the kind of person that you probably would want to put on a witness stand. But that's just my 2 cents on the little bit of information I have at this point in time. So it just depends.
Yeah, I guess we'll see which route he decides to go, his defense decides to go. The next question I have for you too is back to that proposal video, because that's really, I mean, we're thinking about people getting engaged. We see it all the time on social media. It's usually a really happy occasion, and we don't often see a complete switch in this way. I'm wondering if that video can be used in the trial, if it's something, if it does go to
Of
jury
course
trial,
it
that
can.
jurors could watch and see the stark difference between getting engaged and being in love and this stabbing to death murder.
There's no guarantees in law, but I can almost guarantee that the jury would see that video. It's textbook nature of the relationship, and I think that the prosecutor will really want to play into that to say he went from this one day to violent murder the next day.
But what is the motive the prosecution is going to use? They have to have a motive. A motive is a reason. Only motive they could have is whatever's in those text messages. That's why they have no problems making the phones affordable so everyone could have one, because they could track you. They could see your thoughts from your social media. They could see your messages and communication to the next person. So that's where we at with that. Be careful with those cell phones.
So I think that will be shown.
What is your guess? Do you think this will end in a plea deal or it should go to jury trial?
I think that the investigators need to uncover more facts before I can really say. But just my knowledge of the judicial system, most cases don't go to trial. So if I had to guess, it probably will work out before trial takes place. But again, I think the investigation's ongoing, and I'll be interested to see what they uncover.
All right. Well, I think that he going to trial. If he ain't tell on himself yet, he know he could beat it. That means that he's a seasoned criminal, and he knew that you need to just shut the F up. And that's where it's at, and it's the only way to be the case. Again, make sure you subscribe at my daughter's YouTube channel, Unique Mecca Audio. Subscribe at Unique Mecca Audio Prison Stories and Mecca Audio TV. Hit the notification bell, and let's get this thing popping. Oh, and let's not forget, cop the book of Rowan Harlem at rowanharlem.com and also on Amazon. Alright.
Cheers, cheers, toast the crime, toast the crime, the crime, the crime, the crime.
Fresh out the can of 26, he back on the strip, getting back in the mix. What he mentions a gift. You stand up 10 toes down, and I suggest you pay attention to this. Take a little gully posse and put it in Harlem. He cut from the bottom, came up from the bottom. Drop the book, you should go and get it. The Instagram page and the YouTube, you could go and visit. Then you could consider yourself LinkedIn. Sit front row and get Jews from a kingpin. How he went through it, so you ain't gotta go do it. Did not pay attention would be stupid. Talking about a man that probably put your grandfather on. Probably the reason that him and your grams got along. A man that generated millions on the block, did his time, never squilling to the cops, Mecca audio. Get it live like 2 G's in the 90s. Drop top beamer so shiny. I let shorty go, she was wine. Treat her like my past, she behind me. Spend a couple bands on the dapper Dan. You be back again, getting green like a Packers fan. No cap, it's a roaring uptown. Baby horn uptown, Dominican bust downs. Now we on the positive, we got a lot to give. Now you trying to stop the kids from being inoperative. So take heed, homie, lend an ear. He started in uptown, he gon' finish dead. But now it ain't about selling drugs, buying cars. It's about buying property to make the community yours, so we can give back to the
Cheers, cheers, toast the crime, the crime, the crime, the crime.